Okay, so I've just created a 3D view of the interior, so that you can see there when I'm toggle the massing on, that I can see that pretty clearly in my perspective. And so that might be enough to give me an idea of the main form, and I'll go into one of my ground floor plans, and I can of course modify that really easily now using just the arrows here. And if you go to edit and place, then I have the void that I used to create that hole, and there, if I go to a 3D view where I can see my mass, you just need to be careful once you start manipulating things like this that you're getting the right surface. So I'm going to use tab there to make sure I've got the plane on the right hand side, not just the bottom edge. Because if I select just that edge, well, I've lost the whole thing now, so I'll do that again. Okay, so tab first to select that whole element, and then I can tab to get the surface. But another option that can help a lot when you're working with massing is this X-ray option, and that will give you a display of your objects that's a wireframe essentially, and it shows you all the different parts. So you can see there all the vertices on each corner, the edges, and again, if I use tab now, to get that side, you can see it actually tells me down here as well. So if it's a bit hard to see on the screen, just keep an eye down there. It's telling me I've got surface now, but I can see pretty clearly that it's the surface on the front. I don't want that, I want the other surface. So I'm going to press tab again, and just keep going until I get the right one. So that's the front, that's the side. You can see it really clearly flicking from one to the next. So there we go, that's the side again. So it's really important that you're comfortable using tab to cycle through all the different selection options you have at every location. And so there, I can again move that edge back to get a wider corridor. So I suppose the things I'll be looking for there is the clearance there, whether that's a useful space or not. That's fine. And then here, if this is going to be a useful tenancy or something, I want distance inside, interior, that's fine as well. Alright, so then the other thing I want to show you is you can have masses within masses. So I could go and add, easily actually, add more solids within this mass family, but sometimes it's easier if you're breaking things up the way I'm going to, then sometimes it's easier just to add a brand new in place mass family. So I might have tenancies within this now, and I want to establish those and start to plan those out. So I can just go and draw lines. There's no problem doing them on top of another mass. And so I could use pick here to pick lines I've already drawn. I could even pick grid lines, and that probably would make sense if we're tied in with the structure. And I can pick the walls, and then just like you would normally, join all those together. There, it's struggling to find. Actually, I might not have picked that one. I picked it. Oh yeah, I did pick it. Okay, so I just didn't want to find it. Alright, so when that happens, that 3D massing view can be really useful, because then you'll see just the mass elements. Okay, so I've got that basic footprint, and that would work as a mass, but I've just found from experience that it's a bit clearer if that's a separate zone within another zone, to do something like offset that. So if I use offset, turn that copy option off, and just bring it in a little bit. So even if it's just 50 mil or 100 mil, I might just do 50 here. That can help you a lot. So there, if I just bring that in, I'm going to use tab to make sure I'm getting the whole shape. And that'll make it easier to manipulate later as well. So there's my closed shape, and now I can extrude that with create form, check it in my 3D view, and have a look at the height and anything else I need to. And you can play with the material for that as well. So we can have a look at, again, one of these default mass materials as a starting point. And let's have a look at the colour there. So don't forget to duplicate your appearance as well before you make changes to it. And so let's think about the colours a bit here, but well, red and green probably doesn't work too well. Maybe red and orange, or red and yellow. Yeah, I'll try red and orange. And in the case of the transparency, should be okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's, you know, a fairly easy thing you can do and start breaking those spaces up further. And I just find it's much easier than trying to model in walls and all those other things where you get too much detail usually. And these block diagrams, I think, are really effective. And you can generate walls and other things from them later if you want to as well. It's not necessary to do that. You can always just draw the walls directly, but sometimes that'll help. So that's the first thing, and then the other thing is the site surround. So to come back to the remainder of the building, the other elements apart from the massing, back to massing and site, and you know you can keep developing up the existing things while you're working on your massing. So I've got the massing still showing there, but I can toggle that off in all of those views except for my 3D massing view, where it's always just going to show the massing, so that's a nice view to have. And then the rest will have the massing hidden when I don't need it. And then, oh, by the way, so I just reminded myself, I would do something for the fire stairs, just a block as well, just to show that there's another zone, but I won't do that now. And then you should be thinking about the site. So I've shown you before how you can get a satellite view. And I haven't given you the one I've used previously. No. So well, it'd be good practice just going through that. So you know about 6 maps as well. That can be good for these things, but Google for most things is fine. Okay, so there's the building. Control, sometimes you've got to use function these days, but usually just control print screen. And then if you make a new file in Photoshop, control V, and you don't really even need to crop it. You're not going to be showing anyone this image, so I'm just going to save it into your George Street folder. And then into my True North view. Just going to go to Insert and Image. Did I not save it as a JPEG? Let's just double check that. I did. Alright, let's try my own. What's going on there? CAD 4, George Street, definitely there. Oh, different drive, okay. There it is. Okay, so I'll just place it in anywhere. And then, quick way to scale it. I'm not going to be too fussy here because we've got the building size worked out already. So using the scale tool there, just click onto the centre of that line, take it over to the end, take it to the right from there, making sure it's a straight line, and then 20,000. And doesn't hurt to measure that after you've scaled it, just to make sure it's scaled properly. So there we go, that's pretty close to 20 metres, that's good. And now you can see visually, the building there is the same size as what I've drawn in Revit, so that's another way of double checking. And then I need to rotate this image to line up with my building. You'd never want to do it the other way. So you'd never rotate your building, hopefully. Anyway, that's the way you're thinking. Don't rotate your building to line up with north. Some people will tell you your drawings should always face towards true north, but that is definitely not the case with design drawings. Only surveying and engineering drawings really need to do it that way. Even engineering drawings don't usually. So you want to try to get it towards north, but don't ever think you need to always have your drawings oriented, like some people say, exactly to north all the way, all the time, because it actually makes the work much harder when you do that. So here we've got this building at an angle, and if I use the rotate option, then I can simply drag my baseline onto, also my base point onto a corner there, and then bring the base line to the left so it follows that wall, and then take it down slightly until it snaps to horizontal. Now I'm slightly off there, so I would do that again. So I'm going to go rotate again, drag that base point over to the corner again, and over to the left you can see I am a little bit off. Now Revit doesn't want to snap to angles that are slightly off horizontal. So if you press tab though, it may do it for you. Otherwise, there are a couple of tricks. You can either draw a plane there, so it's just not wanting to go down just a little bit. So you can draw a plane that's at the angle you want. So from that corner there, I can draw a plane in. Again, it's trying to do the same thing, but here it should be trying to also snap to the image, which is a nice thing that Revit will do for you. So that should be just slightly off horizontal, so you can see there 179. And so now I'm going to select both that plane and my image, rotate, and then again drag my base point onto the end of that reference plane this time. Now it will snap to that reference plane, and then I can bring it back up that 1 degree. Could have always typed in 1 degree, I suppose, but it's good just to see how rotate works. So now, if I go into the other views, I won't see that image file. That's how I want it. But it's important that you do it like this before then doing the next step, which I'm going to show you, and that's to set true north. If you go to the Manage tab, then have the option in your project location panel to go to Rotate True North, and is there anything you can see that would tell us which way north is? Oh, definitely, that's thinking, yeah, in terms of physics, absolutely, it would, if we knew what time of day they took the photo. Yep, it would. There's a north symbol. That's right, that's pointing towards north. So, and so, remember we've taken this from Google Maps. Which way is north in a map? Straight up, that's right. So the side of the page is pointing towards north, even if we don't see that symbol. So I can just drag that base point over to the corner and then snap to that edge, that's north, and now bring it around to vertical. And that'll set true north. Now you might think, well, I've just gone and done what I told you not to do and I've rotated the building. But it's actually just rotating the view. The building hasn't moved. If I go to my other view, my site plan is still showing the building at its original angle, and that's called Project North. So we want to keep Project North vertical, but True North can be at a different angle, and this is one of the good things about Revit. You have those two different ways of setting north. There's actually three, but they're the two main ways. And so then I can trace, well, firstly moving the image there. I might leave that reference plane actually, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to move my image to see through the building. You can always go to wireframe to help you line things up. And I'm just going to use the arrows on the keyboard now to line this up as best I can. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. You can scale it again if you really want to, but don't have to. Okay, so that's close enough. Actually, maybe slightly back. Yep, that'll do. And now I'm just going to use the pin tool to lock that in position. And then I can go and start making my ground surface. And so what I found is a really good technique for interior design especially is just to make the simplest surface you possibly can to begin with, and then later on add more detail if you need to. So with the topo surface tool there, it's telling me they're not visible in the current view. That doesn't matter. I'll just cancel using place point temporarily, so I can go to my floor plan True North properties and then go into visibility graphics and scroll down, and you'll see that topography is turned off in the view, so I can just turn that off, turn that on while I'm making my surface. And now back to place point. I'm also going to have a look at some of the photos here so you can see the height of the entry. There it is. It's not far above the footpath. This one does step up a little bit. And you can see there's a little bit of a slope there. But again, worry about those details later. So I'm just going to do it really simply to begin with and make it this height all the way. So let's say it's 100 mil below your interior. So all I'm going to do there is make the elevation there minus 100. And then to make the surface itself, let's take it all the way out to the other side of Redfern. And then over here. And which way's the football ground? It's down here, isn't it? That's probably as far as you'd ever want to go. Sometimes it's nice to model all the suburb around it, but probably here just do the blocks around. But I think there's a big park down there, which would be a nice thing. Anyhow, so 1, 2, 3, 4 points. That will give me a surface. And if I go to my other site view, zooming out there, you can see that surface pretty clearly. Tick to finish. Like I said, we can always go back and add in extra points to put in slopes and also break it up for the roads later. Do you remember doing subregions and the difference between subregions and split surface? Oh, okay. So we'll go with that a little bit again, but subregions are all you should need if you want to start putting in your roads and your footpaths and things like that. You won't need to do split surface for this one, I don't think. So if we go to a 3D view now, you can see the building sitting on a ground surface. And probably more importantly for you at the beginning, your sections now have a ground, which is an important thing. Do you remember what to do if you want to see the ground being cut in a 3D view? Like this. So I'll duplicate this view, just because I always like to have the original without much done to it. And so we'll call this 3D exterior. And so the trick there is just to use the section box. Turn section box on. Once you bring the sides of that in, then it shows the ground being cut, and I might just make that come down a little bit so it's a bit thicker. So that makes it look a bit more solid, which is a nice thing in those views. Okay, don't forget you can always hide the section box when you select it. Right click, hide in view, elements, and if you need to use it again, click on the light bulb, and you can even work on it in hidden mode or reveal mode. So that's a nice view to have. And then once you start putting in the roads and other things, let's just quickly put in a couple. Again, using subregions. Good trick there is to use pick lines and know the distance. Shame that's all in shadow. Yeah, so if you have a look in Street View, you'll probably get a better idea than I can where the footpath is, because there's some funny things happening with the bike lanes. In fact, maybe we'll look at getting a six maps one in here as well. It does go to there. It's a pretty wide footpath, and then it sort of cuts back, I think. That's the way it works. And there's a photo of it here. Where was it? Right, so it's got this bike lane, and also if you have a look in Street View, where was it? Oh god. Microsoft are really trying to kill Internet Explorer. There we go. Okay, so you know, if you look in Street View, might give you a better idea. Yeah, so it's funny, they did Street View a different time to the satellite view. So yeah, so you've got quite a narrow road there, and then well, it's not really bike lane, or is it now? I think it has been changed to a bike lane, but at the moment, so you can see it's just shown as car parking. And so anyway, you can start drawing that in, and so just very roughly. Oh yeah, so like I said, if you know that distance, using pick lines, you can get a parallel line. Doesn't really need to be, I suppose, but if that's something you want, you can put in a distance here like 6,000, and then pick something you've already drawn. It's nice if things are parallel. Just little tips like that, hopefully will help you in your drawing. So it can even be very rough, like I'm doing it now, to begin with. And so you can see often I'll just draw a couple of lines that are perpendicular to each other, and then instead of drawing lots of new lines, I'll copy those lines so that I know that they have the same angles. And then you can use the different tools to join them together. Sometimes I just find that's easier. So I can extend that out now. It should follow the same angle. Okay, so very quickly there, got some sort of basic road, and I won't do the whole intersection. I'll just do the other side here. join them together. And actually just copy this one and I'll get a closed shape. So it has to be closed like most things in Revit. I won't let you finish it until it is. Just extend that a bit. Right, so back into 3D, and I can see my surface there in the cut view. It may even go all the way. Yeah, that's good. So then I can just set a different material to that. So just make a site tarmac. And get a tarmac material. So I'm in the physical folder. I've got to go to appearance to get some more. So that'll do. There we go. So that's not a bad way of showing things on your ground surfaces. If you want to, you can lower that slightly if you want to show the curb, but worry about those things later. For interiors projects, not so important probably. And then finally, the buildings nearby. So you could look at modelling those as well, just to get a block form for them. Exactly. And that'll be something you want to show in your renders as well at the end. So yeah, so it's good to be thinking about that. And if we go back to the view with the satellite image, I can just use model in place. Probably just set generic models as the category. And then simply do extrusions. So maybe picking that wall there, and then actually in this one as well, and then I can copy that and join it, and then copy this one. It's just easier than trying to, you can use offset, but sometimes it's just easier to copy. There we go. And then the start, I'd leave on -100 because we know that's the height of the ground surface. And then the end, all you can do is guess at the moment how tall this building is. Let's say 5 meters, probably taller than that. And then into my 3D view. There we are. So yeah, probably is taller than that. Let's just stretch that up by eye for now. And it's a good idea to set a material for those. So I'll probably just start with the finished material, and then make a material called, you know, neighbours something, and just set a fairly generic sort of appearance for that. So maybe just a bit lighter. So you can have these nice sort of blocky models around your subject building, and then and actually a good trick there, rather than making a whole lot of extrusions over and over again, you can just copy that now. That didn't work, so that's a bit strange. I'll just do that again. There's an option, constrain, gets in the way often when you're doing this, so turn that off, and I'll turn multiple off as well this time. And now that should be easier, so I can just click on a point and be sure, there we are, that it's going to go there. And then the arrows make it really easy to adjust. There we go. So it shouldn't take you long to get a lot of these buildings. Some of them are L-shaped, so you might need to make some of them again. But you know, definitely for things like, well, terraces, you could maybe do 2 blocks. Sometimes it's worth doing a couple, one for the front bit and then one for the lean-to at the back. Depends how much detail you want to show, but it's a fairly simple thing you can do. It's good to have a different block for each building, so at least there's some distinction there between them. There we go. So very rough, and can maybe just zoom in a little bit. But you know, before long, you can get a really good mass model of the locality. It's not using massing; it's just using model in place, but still works pretty well. So again, yeah. So just maybe quickly the lean-tos, and I'll finish up there. So this is how easy it is once you've got that basic setup. It's hard to even see that properly, but you know, if you can do something like that, it gives a basic idea. Probably isn't that tall, and they'd be sloping though, so that's alright. And you could maybe get those to be a bit lower, thinking about the parapet. If you really want to go and take it all the way, you could model the roof form, but for interiors, I think even for most architectural projects, they wouldn't take it that far. So you probably don't have to. Okay, and then you can have fun later if you want to put cars and trees and all those things in, you can. But it's nice to have the buildings there before that.